Hi there. Welcome back to the Real Film Chronicles podcast. As always, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Brian.
And in this week's very special episode, we're going to be taking a little look at a film called the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Absolutely fantastic. Not to be confused with some earlier iterations of the Mario Brothers on the big screen. This is, there's history here that we just have to address right away, right? This is the
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, this is the first Mario, proper Mario movie in literally 30 years. The original, I believe they just called it Super Mario Brothers, released in 1993. And then...
Simpler times.
It was, so bad, quote unquote, so bad. I can't help but look back at it with fond nostalgia, but I understand it has a very low rating. It reviewed so badly that Nintendo just says, no, we are out of the movie business now. And then 30 years goes by before we get a proper Mario movie. I thought the hype on this film was pretty big, and it was kind of reflected in the box office. Were you looking forward to this movie at all?
I will say, as a long time, obviously you and I grew up with Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Right? I still remember that one Christmas, and my uncle got our family the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah.
With the cartridge, the dual cartridge Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. Came with the light gun and everything for Duck Hunt. And waking up on Christmas morning, and Mom had set up this magical machine, and waking up Christmas morning and playing Super Mario Brothers for the first time and having my mind absolutely blown as a kid back then. So coming from our background of being kind of Mario heads in a way, of we're the Mario generation, right? We're the first Mario generation, I guess I should say, because there've been enough games now where there's literally different generations of Mario players.
It's true.
But honestly, I was dispassionate about the whole release of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Just from looking at the ads, it looked like a fine movie, but it just looked like a kid's movie, right? It looked like a movie that was made for kids. And watching it, I think my suspicions were confirmed. There are some movies that have a broader range of audience, but I felt that this Super Mario Brothers movie was aimed squarely at the 6 to 12-year-old age range, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I just felt like this wasn't a movie made for me, and that's perfectly okay. And so I was my watching kind of matched my expectations. So I wasn't super hyped. I didn't super hate this movie coming out. It wasn't ruining my childhood. I didn't hate on Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt can voice anyone he wants. I don't care about all that noise in the background. It was a fine movie. I wasn't really pumped for it, and so I wasn't super disappointed or super pleased either way. That was kind of, for me, this whole exercise has been kind of middle of the road for me. How were you? Were you pumped about this movie coming out at all?
I can't help it. I was getting kind of excited for it. I was looking forward to it. The initial trailers, I was just like, oh, good. We're going to have a proper animated, true to the games and how the characters look and stuff. Because I'm going to reference that 93 Mario movie where it was all live action. Things were completely bonkers and completely butchered from... Even when I'm 12 years old and watching that movie, you're like, wow, this is not my Mario Brothers. You know what I mean? And,
I don't know, man. You can't beat Bob Hoskins as Mario. Come on.
But that's the thing. I still love the movie because back then we didn't have a lot of content like that. We had the Super Mario Brothers Super Show on TV. We had a few animated series.
Yeah,
we had
great.
A few games, but now there's so much merchandise and stuff, and there's so many to go along with Mario, and it's this is a return to form. So yeah, I was pretty excited, but I also recognize this is probably going to be a little more kid focused, younger demographic. And I think based on the studio is the Illumination Studios, who also did
Despicable Me and the Minions.
Yeah. Because I don't want to point this out before I forget, 20 minutes down the road in this episode. When you go to see a Pixar movie, there is certainly heavier themes present in almost all of them, but it can still there are masters that appealing to, I'd say all audiences. I could watch a Pixar movie
broad
right
range.
now.
Yes.
Yeah. And get a lot out of it.
You can watch a Pixar movie from age 6 to age, 60 or age 100, let's say.
Yeah.
And you can, And at every stage in your life, you can watch a Pixar movie and you can feel engaged with the content. Like there's something in there for you, right? But Super Mario Brothers movie, not to discredit it, like it did exactly what it set out to do, I think. But it was watching this as a 40-something-year-old man, I was like, this movie was clearly not made for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, there were so many like little references and Easter eggs to all the Mario games from the past like 30, 40 years that you're like, oh, I recognize that. I recognize this. And so on. And so far, it was like, there's a lot of on-screen stuff, but like, yeah, thematically, even story-wise, it was just like, I'm not getting like a huge emotional pull out of this movie like you would get out of a Pixar. And to be fair, I don't really watch a lot of these animated movies much anymore. Even the Pixar and Disney ones I've kind of lost track of over the years.
No. And even like, because my kids, when they were younger, my kids are a bit older now, so they're not into the Disney Pixar stuff. So I haven't seen like Frozen 2 and Encanto and Raya the Last Dragon, like all the new ones coming out. Yeah. I haven't had an impetus to see them. But like, if they're anything like the other Pixar, like I remember watching Tangled. Love Tangled, man. I'll watch that any day of the week. You put on Tangled and it's about Rapunzel, about this princess with super long hair going on this adventure. I love that movie. You throw on any of the old Disney movies, Beauty and the Beast, from like their second golden era there, right? Like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King. As an adult, I'll watch those any day of the week. Throw Aladdin in there. Done. But the Super Mario Brothers movie is its own category of film. I think if your kids are at the age where they like Paw Patrol, I think they're gonna love the Super Mario Brothers movie. Like this is gonna be the best movie in the world for them. Amazing.
Paw Patrol. I haven't heard.
Yeah. I have another question too. I don't know, maybe you have your finger on the pulse more than I do, but like you and I, like Super Mario Brothers, that's huge hype because that's part of our childhood.
Yeah.
Like, is Mario still as iconic today for like little kids? Like, say, like not just like 6 to 12-year-olds, but like teenagers and early 20s? Or like, do they have the same hype as somebody like from our generation would about Mario? I don't know. Do you know?
Like, I remember back in the day reading in some magazines or whatever, they're like, yeah, Mario is one of the only other characters right next to Mickey Mouse that has the worldwide appeal as, Mickey Mouse himself. Okay. Who was like probably the most famous, cartoon character out there. And you're like, Mario was up there at the time. 30 years later, I'm not sure if that's true. It's like video game wise, there's a lot more games with Mario in it. And there's a lot more like structure to the quote unquote formula, because like, we're talking like Mario, like there were 3 Mario games on the original NES. And then we had a couple on the Super Nintendo and so forth. And it's like Nintendo 64 launches with Mario 64, which is completely iconic. And like, I think a lot of people's introduction to Mario, and like that elevated even further. But there weren't a whole lot of Mario games, like mainline ones, over the course of those years. Like, let's say the next decade, you get a couple on the GameCube. But what they did was put Mario into a whole bunch of games. And like Super Smash Brothers with Mario and the entire crew, you have the Mario Kart games. You've got like Mario Golf and Mario Tennis now. And when the Wii launches, that sold such massive numbers. Everyone's playing Mario. And
Wasn't there like a Mario versus Rabbids or something crazy crossover?
Like they were open to like the whole raving Rabbids.
Also, wasn't there like a Nintendo and Sega crossover Olympics, like Mario and Sonic at the Olympics or something?
Yeah, exactly. Which was unheard of when we were kids, like, bitter rivals.
That took a lot of years of healing for that collaboration to happen.
And then a bunch of executives thinking, imagine how much money we would make if we just combined these two characters into one game.
Once again, money was the answer. The answer all along was money. Yes, that was the correct answer.
In terms of the movies, I mean, we played a lot of the games. The movies, like, I've started a project recently because I haven't seen Minions. I haven't seen Despicable Me. I started a project to watch the box office top 100 grossing movies of all time, right?
Okay.
And that means visiting a lot of these quote unquote children's movies that I've missed over the years, including like, I think Minions there's 1 or 2 Minions and Despicable Me that are part of that list. And it's like, okay, I'm going to start watching these ones that I've missed over the past 13 years now. Like these Minions have been around for a while, and it's kind of interesting. And one thing I'm not looking forward to is revisiting or actually just watching for the first time, all these Disney live action remakes of their cherished classic movies, right? So I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, give me a Mario Brothers movie over top of trying to rejig these classics into live action movies that everyone just seems to detest. And you're like, if there's one, I mean, you think Disney, I think corporations, right? You're like, this is just a money grab. And I think Mario doesn't fit that bill for me, even though I know it's, Nintendo wanting to expand, and I think they might be developing their own studio along with Illumination to develop more properties after this. Mm-hmm. But it's like, this feels like them just wanting to share Mario with everybody. Maybe I'm just going in with like some rose-colored glasses on it. I'm not sure.
Potentially. I think there is a business in the show business aspect to any movie that's going to get made, including the Mario Brothers movie. Yes, there's corporate motives to earn money, but I think you're correct. I mean, I could be reading this with rose-colored glasses as well, but there seemed to be like an earnestness to the Super Mario Brothers movie that I did appreciate, where they were treating, I don't know, it's a weird thing to say, treating the material with respect, because it's a video game about a couple brothers who break blocks with their heads and jump on weird turtle mutant creatures to kill them. But like they were very, I think, particular about their call outs and their references. Yeah. I think there was like a kind of earnestness or sweetness to like the brother relationship between Mario and Luigi, where that was played up quite a bit, and the kind of cuteness of the toads and the penguins and everything. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, sure. There was an earnestness behind there, I think, to like, let's make this fun for the kids. Let's have Bowser sing a funny song that the kids will all laugh at the theaters. Like, absolutely. It was made, I think, with the best of intentions to entertain children.
That scene where Bowser is at the piano and singing his Peaches song, was that like the weirdest thing? Like,
listen, I feel like this is another moment where like I'm completely against the grain on this thing, because everyone is online praising Jack Black, like, oh, this Peaches song is amazing. And then I watch it and I was like, he's just screaming Peaches over and over again. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, all due respect, like I love Jack Black, amazing performer, both like as a musician and as an actor. Yeah. But that Peaches song was like, again, if you're an 8-year-old kid, you probably love the heck out of that. Peaches, 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 Peaches. It's like 8-year-old kid, amazing. Like that's Mozart, right? But to me, watching as a 40 something year old man, is just like Jack Black. Like you think about Jack Black in like Kung Fu Panda and the work he's done in animated work, is like, this is no Kung Fu Panda. Honestly, talking about another one, right? DreamWorks, where you can watch Kung Fu Panda as a kid, as an adult, and you can be engaged the entire time for very different reasons, right? Here it's just like, there's nothing thematically or narratively or character-wise to engage me as an adult. Again, not a bad thing. But just like, as an adult watching this, is just like, I was trying really hard to stay focused, because like the plot just kept like doing things. People were doing things. Bowser was just singing a song randomly. It's like, this feels exactly like it was designed for the attention span of somebody the age who was watching like Bubble Guppies. Like some of these was like, oh, these kids shows that the shows that my kids used to watch, Paw Patrol, Bubble Guppies. It's like, oh yeah, they just have like a random musical number in between whatever else is going on in the show. It's like, this seems to be like following that kind of formula almost exactly. And again, if you want to keep your kid entertained for a couple hours, or what is it, 90 minutes maybe?
Yeah, 92 minutes, this film.
92 minutes? Yeah. Amazing little movie to do that, right? It's like, I'm sure like kids, like the Bowser song is like, you probably got kids screaming out Peaches now in the back of your car, back of cars all across the world because of Jack Black. So thank you, Mr. Black.
So like for me, that scene was like, I'm not a particular fan of the song or anything. I don't get it. My age, it's just like, what is going on here? I understood walking out of this movie, that scene existed because they have the extreme musical talent of Jack Black, and you got to have him sing. It's like, that's great. But in terms of like, it didn't feel like it did anything for the plot of the movie or the story or anything. It was just there just to have like something like to make memes out of afterwards. Just like, this is going to appeal to everyone because it's kind of funny, but you're like, oh, I realize this whole movie, we never have a reason to really cut back to Bowser or King Koopa in terms of the story, because it's just like we're being told that he's doing this, and he's basically just chilling at his castle the entire time, not really doing anything.
Well, that scene felt like, when you put it in that context, a lot of people will say online is like, you see ads for example, Megan or the Addams Family, and it's them doing like whatever their crazy dance is. And it almost feels like that was put in the movie just to inspire a TikTok craze for a couple of weeks to get buzz out about the movie. It had nothing, like, it doesn't add to the movie or the show itself. It's literally like they're so self-aware now, that is the filmmakers and the producers is like, if this dance will catch on TikTok for a week or two, and that'll be a bunch of free publicity buzz, for the show or the movie. And it feels like that in that sense, it feels kind of a little bit cynical to throw that stuff in there. At the same time, it's like there's an earnestness, but there's also something kind of very cynical about the Super Mario Brothers movie at the same time. I know you and I talk a lot about this trend in movies, different trends in movies, but one in particular, the nostalgia and the callbacks. And I think we've talked about, the term I use is weaponized nostalgia. Another buddy of mine I was talking to, and he coined a term. I don't know if he coined a term, but he mentioned nostalgibation as a term. But essentially, it's like you're substituting in nostalgic references and pop culture references instead of a story, instead of a character development, instead of theme, as opposed to, incorporating those nostalgic references to enhance the theme or enhance the narrative, or enhance the characters. It's when you're substituting, like watching the Mario Brothers movie, it seemed to be just like a number of references, like, Super Mario Kart, it's on like Donkey Kong. You got the blue shell. Oh, you got the tiny mushroom. You got the star. It's just like, it just felt like just like from one reference to the next. And like, I'm kind of burned out on that. I mean, that's happened with, you see it in big franchises like Star Wars. The MCU is getting too self-referential. You see like all these, like Indiana Jones 5 is coming out now. I don't know how built on nostalgia it is, but like the whole foundation of that is almost like nostalgia based. So like, I'm just so getting really, really worn out. I've been worn down. I'm broken down. It's like, if you're just firing nostalgic references at me, that's like nostalgia a movie doth not make, nostalgia alone doth not make a movie. And that's the issue I kind of had with it. It's like, it's like remember this. It's like, yes, Nintendo, I remember all of that. That's great, but that's not a movie.
See, for me, I feel like I'm willing to give Nintendo and like the studio here a pass, because we haven't had any other movies to reference, right? And they're only nostalgic about 40 years of history of the games that haven't really had a proper adaptation. So it's like, I see the blue shell and it's like, yeah, there's the blue shell I play with literally 30 years ago, right? And it's just like, it's not the type of nostalgia that I think we've talked about it, like say the Ghostbusters, where they're relaunching Ghostbusters
Afterlife that was terrible for nostalgia.
Yeah, and it's just like that. This movie doesn't fall victim to that for me, because it's not
that bad.
Yeah, because it's just like, we finally have a chance to properly reference and throw in all the little goodies from all the video games that we haven't adapted in forever. The MCU is a great example where I don't feel like they did that, the first few, like the Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, but now they're just like referencing themselves. It's like the snake eating itself after a while. They have 30 movies to like eat, to go off of. You're like, this is like a self-contained thing. If they made a Mario movie every year or two, eventually that's going to happen to them as well. And I think it probably happens in a lot of these these animated movies, is that they're just they have so many now, like 3 Despicable Me's, a couple Minions, and you're like, you're going to start referencing your movies, even from like a decade previous. 5 movies in, you got to do it. And it's just like, this one, it's probably going to fall victim to the same kind of pattern, but also with the entire video game industry, like that world baked into it as well, which, The other element that I want to talk about on this movie was like how fast paced this thing was and how like unsettling it was. And you mentioned before, like it was almost like it's made for kids, and it's like the
short attention span. Yeah.
Span is not there, and you're like, man, we needed like more character beats. Like I'm glad the Mario brothers, the actual brother relationship was fairly well established, and there were some good moments there. But for the most part, like, and I saw this criticism before watching the movie, so I was like, I can't take credit, but it's like you meet a character, bam, there's their name, and whoop, let's just hit the accelerator and go, 100 kilometers an hour. It's just like we're
sometimes
on the road,
literally like on Rainbow Road.
Yeah. It was just like you don't have a moment to breathe, and at 92 minutes. Man, they could have easily made this an extra 15 minutes longer, and I think it probably would have benefited from that. And I wonder if they have these focus groups, with kids and all ages, and they're just like, oh yeah, people are starting to get bored after 2 or 3 minutes of something not happening, so let's just cut it, let's just speed it up type of thing. It's just like, man.
They did their audience research. They realized, people are going to take their kids to this. If we design this movie for kids, if you film it for kids, they will come, right? It's going to be, and it has. I can't remember. I don't know what the box office total is, but it's like it's closing in on $1 billion, isn't it? Like it's one of those.
It's over $1 billion, and yeah, we're going to talk about box office there. It's like that ties into my previous mentioning of the top 100 project, because E.T. was like number 100 for a little while, and it's like, great, I'd seen this.
Do they account for inflation on that?
They do not in this particular list I'm looking at.
Okay.
And then Mario comes out, and 3 weeks later, E.T. is off the list of the top 100. And be like, oh my goodness, my count is going down. I have to go. I'm glad. I know I'm going to go watch Mario regardless, but it's like I got to get that count back up. It's like, yeah, this is $1 billion movie, Nathan. This is guaranteed.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. Like all movies don't have to be made for me. I recognize that. So maybe it's not unfortunate, but like watching this as an adult, like I had to think to myself, like, what's the difference between watching the Super Mario Brothers movie and watching an hour and a half of Super Mario Brothers memes on the internet? There's no real difference to me, right? It's like, it's thematically and narratively, it's just as engaging for me to watch a bunch of random Super Mario Brothers memes as it is to watch this movie, because that's pretty much what it is. So like, it didn't feel like a movie to me. It felt like a collection of different references. If that's your cup of tea and it's for kids, man, more power to you, man. But like, it just, for me, it was just like, maybe the weird thing was that like there were grown men, and yes, it is usually majority is men, arguing passionately and insulting each other online when this movie came out. Some of it was around like, oh, they cast Chris Pratt and he's not going to do the stereotypical Italian accent. It's like, A, who cares? And B, it's stereotypical for a reason. But people were getting such a tizzy about like, it's a movie based on a series of video games where dudes jump around and break bricks and kill creatures called Goombas. Like, what are you? Why are you so emotionally invested in this movie? It's just like it boggles my mind that these stories told for children, like, literally seem to warp the minds of adults and throw them into a rage. It boggles my mind that adults have so much riding on this. I don't know. It's very, very weird.
We've touched upon it before. Like, you're talking about like the fan base and like toxic fandom. It is definitely an issue here. And I mean, the Mario stuff is it's not immune to that sort of thing. And I definitely saw a lot of discourse online about, Chris Pratt. Is he like an established voice actor? Like, is he even a good actor? I'm not sure. Is he going to do a good Mario voice? I'm not sure, but I get caught up in the discourse too, because it's like, man,
yeah.
I have to trust him at the end of the day. And I was happy that everything was fine. Like, his voice was fine. Charlie Day, fine. Anya Taylor-Joy, great. Jack Black, fantastic. Keegan-Michael Key, he's good. And Seth Rogen.
He's always great. I love watching him show up. And Seth Rogen I think Seth Rogen's really come far as a performer too. I think he's got the distinctive voice, but you can really tell if you look at some of his earlier work and some of his work, even just his voice work here, is like, you can tell like he's been refining his craft, right?
Now, how did you feel about like Donkey Kong being so prominent in this movie, considering, I mean, this is going back to the origins of Mario. It was his first appearance as like Jumpman in the original Donkey Kong arcade game, right? So it's like there's some history there. But generally, I mean, that's going back to the early 80s. Generally, Donkey Kong and Mario do not mix Except in Super Smash Brothers games where like every Nintendo character is in there. I was kind of surprised to see so much Donkey Kong, but I didn't hate it either. I was just like, oh, this is, I mean, the whole Donkey Kong army, the ape army or whatever it was. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with that, but I'll take it as a pass because I get to watch some kart.
Apes.
Yeah, I'm just like, they're on Rainbow Road. It's kart racing. They do one of the shortcuts from the Mario 64 version. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm sold. They got me with the nostalgia.
Well, to quote the hated neutrals from Futurama, I have no strong feelings about this one way or the other. If you can tell, like I wasn't emotionally invested in the movie to begin with. After having seen it, I have no emotional investment. So like them going to get Donkey Kong is like, I felt nothing. I was like, okay, that's cool. Like there's Donkey Kong and there's Cranky, and then there was like a brief flash of Diddy. They did Diddy dirty.
They got Diddy and they got Dixie Kong in there. They had a bit of Funky Kong, I believe. They had a lot of the Kongs, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get a full blown Kong movie next. That seems right.
That's the next logical step, right? Is that they built it all up. But yeah, it was sure. Why not throw Donkey Kong in there? Why not have Princess Peach floating around with her skirt as an umbrella like in the games? Like, sure, why not? I'm not, if it keeps your young kids quiet for an hour and a half, it's like, do it. I've had young kids. If you can get them to be quiet for an hour and a half, it's like, sure, whatever it takes, do it. Throw all the Donkey Kongs, throw all the monkeys you want on the screen. Have a whole Mario Kart movie. You can be like, start the Fast and the Furious set in the
now you're talking, man. Yeah, definitely. We got something there for sure.
It's like a quick call up Illumination, get that copyrighted right away. Let's start talking to their producers.
The thing is, I can't help it. Like, I'm just sitting there after Mario and be like, oh man, they didn't put in Wario and Waluigi and they didn't put in these characters. That was like, there is so much untapped characters and like lore to pull in other movies. I can't help but get excited. I like Mario.
Use the term character very loosely in this case, Brian.
Well, come on.
So what's his characterization? He's an evil Mario and his M's turned upside down.
Yeah, it's classic. I mean, come on.
It is classic. No, it's another great reference, another great meme that I can look on the line and find already, I guess. It's like, I don't know. Like, I don't.
Well, listen, if you look at memes online, you're not going to get all the voice talent and high resolution, video production from this movie. I mean, can you say it looked good? Like, I thought the animation was pretty solid.
Oh man, yeah, no, this is top. You can tell this is top notch animation. Like that, the visuals are nothing to complain about. I have no complaints with the visuals. It was a great interpretation of the video game world onto the screen, and like at this point, there were lots of nice nods to like the 2D classic platforming that we grew up with.
Yep.
But at this point, like so many generations now have had like the full 3D Mario experience. So it wasn't as much of a stretch to have, 3D video game into a 3D animated world. It's like, oh, it translated really well now because you have decades of the similar reference type. It was like it's almost just like taking a video game and upping the graphics, maxing out the graphics, right?
Well, that's the thing, is that they've dialed in. I think Nintendo is very protective of, how the image of their characters are and how they've evolved and how they're depicted. They've dialed in the look of all these characters for so long now. Like, you play a Mario game, it's like they've taken like that model of Mario and can transplant them anywhere, and it looks great. If in here, you do have to make a few changes here and there, but generally it's like these characters look authentic to the games you're playing right now at home. It's like, it's just something I never thought I would see back in the late 80s when I first started playing Mario, and it's like, There's a certain magic there for me that it's like, I'm still getting wowed at when I see this on the big screen all this time. It's like, man, I'm almost kind of glad that we didn't get a janky 2004 Shrek level animation of Mario back then. It's just like,
how dare you, sir? Shrek is a beloved classic.
I mean, probably a bad example, but it's just like I watched Shrek a couple years ago, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is. I mean,
you can tell the difference now for sure. Yeah,
it's in its
technology's
infancy.
come so much further. Yes, absolutely. It was cutting edge at the time, and it still looks great. But yeah, you could tell. Shrek 4, the animation, I won't talk about the story, but the animation between like Shrek and Shrek 4 or Toy Story and Toy Story, what is it, 5 or 10 or whatever they're at? I don't know.
Toy Story, the first one in the mid 90s, and you're blown away.
At the time, we were blown away, right?
And you watch it now and you're like, wow, it's still I can't believe they were doing what they're doing with those tools. And then Toy Story 4, you're like, geez, it's just, we've come so far. But yeah, I wanted to shout out the theater experience of this because I went with the longtime listeners and friends of the podcast. We met up in a different city, which was kind of like added to the event appeal of this, is seeing this with friends and going out of town to see this. I went to a movie theater I've never been to before. And so it was just kind of like added a different experience. So we've done this a couple times. Especially with Christopher Nolan movies being shown in like 70 millimeter or IMAX. Yeah. We've gone out to Toronto before to see Interstellar. I've gone out to see Dunkirk and Vaughan on like, my God, what was it, like an 18-story screen or something over there? It was just, I'm probably exaggerating a lot, but like that screen boggled my mind when I walked into it. I started getting dizzy looking at it. You know what I mean? So I think
Oppenheimer.
Right. It was just like having that event of going there and watching this with people that don't normally get to watch movies with and seeing this just like my childhood on screen. I mean, I recognize everything that you're saying. I respect it. It's just like at the end of the day, I'm loving seeing Mario on there, but I won't lie. Like I came out of that like mentally exhausted how quick that movie was. I was like, I got to go watch like a couple slow burn films afterwards to like cool down. You know what I mean? And
give me some Akira Kurosawa. Come on, cleanse my palate.
Let's jump into the 3+ hour Seven Samurai here and cleanse my palate for a bit. But I look forward to whatever they do next. And we're gonna get Donkey Kong. We'll get more Mario Brothers. I saw an F-Zero poster in Mario's bedroom, and it's just like, man, I loved F-Zero. There's a racing game. If Gran Turismo can get a movie, F-Zero's got to get a movie, right? I mean,
hands down,
never going to happen. But I mean, obviously have other beloved Nintendo properties like Legend of Zelda and Metroid, maybe a little more cultish, cult following for something like that. But there's all sorts of opportunities there. And it's like, it's awful to say, I mean, we're talking about other franchises and stuff. It's like, I need a break from the franchise of Marvel and DC. And it's just like, if that franchise is Nintendo, all right, you know, I'll go check out more of these.
Well, I don't see the Nintendo's universe as being a substitute for any of those. I don't think they're that similar, right? Like,
they're not similar, but different experience.
They're a break from like Despicable Me, maybe, or like I don't know. Like full disclosure too. Like I absolutely loathe the Minions. Can't stand that stupid high pitched gibberish. Never could. I hated like my son. I think last year he was still at that age. He's still kind of on the cusp. But we went to see, there was a Minions movie. It was like The Rise of Gru, I think it was. Yeah. Gru was like the main character there, the voiced by Steve Carell. But yeah, just like a whole movie of these stupid banana yellow little one-eyed goblins screeching high-pitched gibberish at me. And it was like, I left the theater with a headache afterwards. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I haven't watched those later ones, but I just watched Despicable Me, the first one, and it's like they weren't super prominent, and I could tell because I know like culturally they've taken off and like they're super popular. And it's like the first one, it's like they weren't like necessarily in your face, and it's like, oh, people must have like attached themselves to these little guys.
Kids, went hard, right? They played it up for the kids. It's exactly the kind of stupid little joke, like when one of their pants falls down, you see his little yellow butt. Is like, yeah, kids in the theater laughing their heads off, and as an adult, I'm sitting there, I was like, please let this be over soon. And that's the same kind of thing for Mario. Again, it's not meant for me. I'm not emotionally engaged. I don't care about it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. Don't hate it. I don't really care if we get more movies, but I'm fine if if people love that. It's like, more power to you, man. If you enjoy that stuff, man, live your best life. Go watch every Mario and Donkey Kong movie in existence. I will watch them probably at your behest just to fill out episodes in the podcast. But I'm not looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to new games. Like I finally tried out, I was at my brother's place a couple of weeks ago visiting. I tried out Super Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And I love the heck out of that game.
Yeah.
And I need to pick that up. It's like, I'm looking forward to more games because I love their games. I've been a Nintendo head the entire way through. The only main system I don't have of theirs was the Wii U, and that was just due to budgetary constraints going on in my life at the time, where I couldn't afford necessarily all that fancy gear. But like, I'm a huge fan of Nintendo. I'm like we were talking about before. I'm playing through Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Before this podcast started, and I'm probably gonna go right back to it right afterwards.
Like this is
Love
like
Nintendo.
a speed bump. This is like just an obstacle. Recording this before you get back to Tears.
Yeah, life is really just what happens in between playing Tears of the Kingdom now. So like, I'm not hating on Nintendo, I'm not hating on Illumination, I'm not hating on the movie.
These movies are not for you, basically.
Yeah, I feel like as a 40-year-old man, 40 something year old man, I'm going to be vague on that for now. Like I don't feel like I was engaged mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and even from a visceral kind of just straight up storytelling levels like this. I don't understand how other adults are engaged by this, but if they are, more power to them. I don't know.
And as a early 40s man myself, I was pretty engaged by this movie. I was having a lot of fun with it. So, I mean,
it goes to show our mental ages. I don't know.
I'm willing to accept that judgment. But let's talk about our ratings, because we have to rate everything. We're on Letterboxd. We got a 5-star system to work with. We have a special heart we can apply to our ratings as well. What's your star rating on this film?
Yeah, this was tricky, right? Because again, this wasn't made for our demographic. So how do I rate this? I ended up giving it 2.5 stars because like this was not, I wouldn't call this, I don't think this is what Martin Scorsese would define as a quote unquote film.
This is not cinema.
This is not cinema. But it was obviously well made. All the voice actors, including Chris Pratt. For all you Chris Pratt haters out there, he did a perfectly fine job. He did a really good job as he always does. I find all the voice actors did really great, as you pointed out before. Charlie Day, Michael Keegan-Keel. Michael Keegan-Key. I always get them mixed up. The keys and the peels. But they all did really good jobs. So like, there's obviously a huge amount of talent behind this. So like, I'm not knocking that, but again, I'm not going to go back and intentionally watch this movie again, or like shell out more than $5 to buy it on physical media. You know, like
that's the other question. Yeah. Do you buy this? I don't imagine you have any other like animated films like in this demographic, like in this style.
No. Like I think I haven't focused on a lot of the animated stuff. Like I have Inside. Is it Inside Me or Inside?
Just called Inside.
Yeah, not Inside Me. Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie on that one.
Let's not go there. That's part of a different collection.
Inside, because that one was, I think, really cheap at I was going to say Future Shop at at Best Buy one time. But yeah, I'm actually going back. One of my projects is to go back and get some of the old Disney movies like Robin Hood and Jungle Book that I really loved. And listen, like I love animated movies in general. Like a lot of movies that from my childhood, I want to go back and revisit. Even a lot of the newer stuff, right? Like I mentioned Tangled before, because I thought personally, to start another war online, I thought Tangled was way better than Frozen. I think Tangled should have got all the praise and attention that Frozen got, but that's just
Is that like a point of contention online? Like I'm not familiar with.
I don't know. People talk about Frozen like it's a modern day masterpiece, and people are like, and listen, like if you say Let It Go, that song will immediately pop up.
Yeah.
That one song is okay. I'll give you the one song. But like all these movies are still like, like I watched WALL-E a couple of years back for the first time. Mind blown. Like that movie, I was tearing up at the end, you know, like I was literally getting choked up with that movie. Like there's so many great animated movies out there. I love the medium. But I would give this, I would say I was as emotionally engaged with this as I would be with, there was a Paw Patrol movie that released a couple years ago. It's not for my demographic. Same reason like a lot of rom-coms I probably wouldn't give a high rating to, but it's not because they're necessarily bad. It's not my cup of tea, maybe. I don't know. What would you give this movie, Brian? I'm rambling on here, trying to justify myself to you.
Yeah.
I don't know you anything, Brian.
I landed at 3.5 on this movie because I basically looked at it like, how much did I enjoy this movie? And I quite enjoyed watching it. That being said, I do recognize that there were some issues. I mean, the pacing was really too quick for me. The movie felt a little disjointed here and there. But generally, it's like, yeah, this was just, for me, a really solid outing for a movie. And it was like, I think it was enhanced by the movie-going experience. It was enhanced by my love for Nintendo and Mario and seeing all these old properties. Like, I know it's nostalgia, like
You
that
corporate
weaponized nostalgia,
shill.
but I am totally there for it. My favorite scene is the introduction where they're doing like that stereotypical Italian accent in the commercial. And it's the Mario Brothers like rap or like introduction song from the early 1990s cartoon series. And it's like, yeah, that's there for me. That's there for us 40 plus here, because we were watching that, Saturday afternoons or whatever it was on. So I was there for it. I had a lot of fun with the movie. 3.5. It, like some of these other animated movies I watch, they're really good. And I always reference Pixar because they seem to have that. I don't know if they still have that magic, but they do have that magic. And like, I'm getting emotional on some of those Pixar movies. Like they're going to like bring that out. They just hit those chords. They almost feel like they're malicious about it. You know what I mean? It's just like, man, they know how to do it. They're going to do this to you if you watch this movie.
DreamWorks too. I think you look at the like Kung Fu Panda movies. Like I just watched the first one again the other day. It was on. I can't remember who in the house had it on, but I was like, it was really touching and like really like at the end. Yeah, it was pretty emotional. Like between like Poe and his father and everything, and yeah, there's like some emotional beats in there. I'll take any of the Kung Fu Pandas over Super Mario Brothers any day of the week. I love animation. I guess aimed or designed for my demographic, and it's engaging for me, right? But this was just not my cup of tea. It wasn't made for me, and that's perfectly fine.
So I was taking a nice long drive earlier today, and I was reminded, because I know we were going to talk about this, that we do some film criticism and we do it pretty lightly, like at least for me. Like I'm not reviewing like this. Yeah. I just said I enjoy this. That's how it gets a rating.
We're not official film scholars per se.
Yeah, but I couldn't help to think about it today, where I had read on Reddit at some point some post, and somebody asking, how do I become a better film critic? And somebody posted, I can't remember what the rule was or who came up with this the scheme, but there were like the 3 main questions of criticism that you apply to probably any piece of work, but like movies in this contest specifically, is like, number 1, what is the movie trying to say or do, right? And then 2 is, did it do it successfully? And 3, was it worth it? And I'm like, I think going with all your points there, it's like, here's a movie to distract your kids and feed nostalgia to all the other age groups. Did it do it successfully? $1.266 billion. And was it worth it? For me, definitely was worth it. It was worth all that point. So it's like, there is, there's my 3.5 stars, I guess. But
we'll agree to disagree, but I'll respect that opinion, because like, man, if you love that, man, more power to you. Like I said, it's like, people don't have to like what I like, and I don't have to like what other people like. That's a great thing about democracy, man.
I'm just thinking of the angle of like, why does this movie exist, right? It's there for these reasons. It's not trying to say anything
dig down too deep on that one.
No, well, that's it. And it's just like, does it do it successfully or not? I don't think you could deny that it did.
It's in my 2.5 stars somewhere. Sure, that's part of my reasoning too.
All right. In any event, let's talk about. I want to see your guess on, and everyone listening here, I hope you play along with these. I enjoy throwing these out there. Feel free to cheat. The Rotten Tomato critic rating of this movie is...
Critic rating? Let's go 76.
76 for critics. So you're a bit high on that. A little too high.
Oh, really?
59% on Rotten Tomato
that low?
for the critic
I thought this was generally like just beloved by everybody.
Well, I think from critics, everybody... Well, I shouldn't say everybody. Like a lot of critics, I mean, even as we're talking about it, it's like there's flaws in the movie. It is what it is. Audience rating. Rotten Tomatoes audience rating
82.
Pretty low on that one, actually. It is 96% of audiences found this movie favorable. IMDb rating, they do a 0 through 10 scale.
Let's go 7.2.
You nailed it. Perfect.
Really?
Yeah, 7.2 exactly. I think this is the first time you got it exactly right.
That is the first time. Mark this in the episode marker. I want you to mark down like this is the one time I actually got it bang on.
All right, so Letterboxd is the last one we look at. What is the average Letterboxd user rating on this?
3.7.
Very close. It's 3.5.
Okay.
So definitely, and when you look at the graph on Letterboxd, I always enjoy the graph because it's like it has 11% of those ratings are 5 stars. It goes down to 6% at 4.5. And then 22% of all ratings are 4. And the rest are 3 and 3.5. So the bulk is definitely like 50% are 3 and 3.5 stars. I want to do a bonus round here for the original Super Mario Brothers movie with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. Sorry. What? Now, Rotten Tomatoes and whatnot, we're around here, but they are bringing in old reviews. So what is the critic rating on that 1993 live action Mario?
See, I'm trying to gauge like initial reception versus later reception. I don't know. I'll guess like 36% or something.
Slightly too high. It was 29% for the Rotten Tomato critic.
Okay.
And audience rating on that one? That one's probably a lot harder. Like, I don't trust this number nearly as well.
I'll guess like 43%.
It was also 29%.
Okay.
Part of me is thinking somebody just like copy and pasted those across the site there.
It's entirely possible. And like, I remember watching the new Mario Brothers movie, and it actually made me nostalgic for the original one, even though recognizing all the faults and flaws of that 1990, was it 1993?
Yep.
The 1993 version. Maybe that's an example of like pure nostalgia where I'm looking through the nostalgia glasses and looking at it more fondly. But yeah, watching the new Super Mario Brothers movie actually made me want to watch the old one more.
I love that old one. It's fantastic.
Yeah. For all its not in spite of all its flaws and faults, but because of its flaws and its faults, and because of its kind of quirkiness, and because of its just bizarre narrative choices to interpret. Yeah. Like, it just like, it's a study in like in human psychology. Like, how did this happen? Like, what kind of disorders and drugs, what combination had to come together to form this kind of weird nightmarish version of Mario? It's a case study for the ages. It's
such a product of its time too, right? That's what we did back in the early 90s. It's like Nintendo probably had no say. They probably licensed it out to I can't remember the company that made this now, but they probably just took it and did not consult with anyone. Like Miyamoto, the creator of Mario and a lot of other Nintendo franchise characters and games, he probably had zero say in this movie, right? The new one, he's credited as a producer. He has original writing credit. He's involved, and it's like back in the 90s. No, Hollywood just did whatever they wanted to do, and this is the other thing. You're talking video game movies and like Super Mario Brothers in the context of video game movies. We've been kind of shafted for many, many years. Now, granted, I missed Double Dragon when it launched. Back in the 90s, but I saw Mortal Kombat, and I still think nostalgically about Mortal Kombat. And one thing I see about all these is that they tried to do something a little bit different. They were all live action because like the animation was probably a domain that was too pricey, except for like Disney and a couple other companies. And I think a lot of video game movies get criticized probably for fair reasons. They don't really do the job. And it's like, you think Resident Evil.
100%.
All right. It spawned like 5 or 6 movies, but like, does anyone think those movies are good? Probably not. It's like, there's a whole bunch of video game movies that have suffered. And it's like, finally we have a Mario, like a Nintendo movie that's like actually watchable in some ways. Nathan excluded here is just like from that perspective.
You captured my entire review in one word. It is eminently watchable. This movie is definitely a movie that exists and can be seen by human beings right now. It's like it definitely has actors, it has scenes.
I feel like that type of those comments would be like better suited for like a 0.5-star or 1-star film. But I'm glad you got something out of it to get at least 2.5 stars. The other thing I want to mention before we wrap everything up here is that I went a step further. I discovered that there was another Mario Brothers movie made in 1986.
Blasphemy. What? In the 86?
This is a fully animated movie. It runs 61 minutes long. This is a Japanese animation film that I wouldn't say is a lost film. It was buried. Okay.
That's amazing.
If you could trust the IMDb trivia, this movie came out, I don't know, it saw one VHS release and Nintendo buried it, erased it from existence. It is called Super Mario Brothers Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach. Okay. And keeping in mind the context of 1986, the only Mario games that exist are him, like in Donkey Kong, the original Mario Brothers, which was like the, jumping from underneath to put the turtles onto their backs, if you know what I'm talking about. And then the original Super Mario Brothers game on the NES. Mario 2, I don't think existed. Mario 3 definitely did not. So it's like they had a very limited pool of titles and like content to pull from here. This movie was pretty bonkers, but the history of how this is I think they are a professional fan-based group that restores films, like scans from it. So they found a 16 millimeter print of this movie, scanned it in frame by frame, clean up the audio a bit, and put on their own subtitles and release this online. You can actually go to YouTube. It is on YouTube right now. It's 60 minutes. It's actually a pretty interesting thing. It's much more like straightforward, but oddly enough, it follows the same plot as the other two Mario movies, where Mario and Luigi are like in the quote unquote real world, and they get sucked into like the Mushroom Kingdom, which I found that funny that even the new Mario movie just accepts that, yeah, we're going to do that same thing from before, where we're in the whole new world here, instead of like Mario living in the Mushroom Kingdom as he does in the games.
Now that you say that, it's a really weird choice. Like, why not cut out the middleman? Why can't, did they not have plumbers before? Like, if their toilets got backed up in the Mushroom Kingdom, they just shut that house down and just never went in it again? Like,
listen, I'm not sure there are toilets in the Mushroom Kingdom. Have you ever seen one in the games?
You just opened up a whole can of worms here, Brian. Now I'm going to be thinking about the biological systems of those little toadstools.
Yeah.
How do they... Princess Peach is definitely a human, though, so she's got biological needs.
So they did all sorts of interesting things here, but that first movie, 86, they basically had Mario going on quest. Obviously, it's the same plot too, again, where Princess Peach is kidnapped because Bowser wants to marry her. And he is like super romantic in this movie, just as he is in the latest iteration. It's like he just loves her. And Mario has to get the 3 power-ups in order to get to the final area. And it's very separated. He has to get the mushroom, which he calls the mushroom of truth at one point. He gets a flower and then the star power, and all combined, he can finally go in there. There's a bunch of weird stuff, but the weirdest is the blatant product placement, where Mario and Luigi literally turn to the camera and talk about how much they love Mario ramen and their noodles. And it was just like twice throughout the movie this happens, and you're thinking, wow, did they just run a commercial halfway through? They definitely did. It's just like overt. They're not hiding.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, you just reminded me, there was another live action Nintendo movie, maybe not Mario Brothers specifically, but The Wizard.
Yes.
The Wizard was, you're talking about like a full advertisement in a movie. Nintendo did again come back at one point. They've been trying to chip away at the motion picture industry. The Wizard, which is, unironically, I rated 5 stars in Letterboxd.
You know what? I'd be right there with you, I think. Maybe we need to talk about The Wizard in full detail. But it's like, that was right there. A long commercial for Mario Brothers 3 in movie form.
I'm loving every minute of it.
Fred Savage,
oh yeah,
what a great film. And it got a nice little Blu-ray release. Looks great, fully restored. Fantastic. But do you have anything else to add to our Mario discussion here?
I only have one more thing to add, and it's with the greatest respect and deepest sincerity. It's me, Mario.